On today's show, you guessed it, time for the Great Minnesota Get-Together, 12 days of food and fun. We're checking out what's new at the Northwoods and what's new from our Minnesota-bound log cabin. We'll also meet the artist behind our white cedar creations at the Minnesota-bound cabin, all handmade and all Minnesotan. If you look closely, you may notice some plants around our cabin, native plants to be exact. Meet the company who makes ecological restoration their full-time business. Those stories and more, next.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Minnesota State Fair and the Minnesota Bound Cabin. We snuck in early today. There are already people inside checking things out. We have the entire Minnesota Bound crew ready for today's show. And we're going to start with Travis Frank, who checks out my favorite part of the fair, the Northwoods.
Thanks, Phil. So when you've lost all your money at the Midway, and you're sick of the smell in the swine barn, then it's time to grab a basket of fish and take a deep breath of fresh air in the Northwoods.
All right, welcome to Giggles Campfire Grill, everybody. Home of the best state fair food on the fairgrounds.
At Giggles Campfire Grill, Minnesota's outdoor flavor comes in 32 homemade recipes.
I really want to tell everybody out in Minnesota Bound Land, come and have our candy apple hard cider. It is to die for.
Yummy! You can hang with us at our Minnesota Bound cabin, or
1, 2, go!
catch the Timberworks Lumberjacks in action. Flannel shirts are encouraged, but not required for this Northwoods staple.
We have 7 event lumberjack competition, lumberjacks and lumberjills. All the events have been around for well over 100 years, chopping, sawing, speed climbing, log rolling, and boom running here at Minnesota. Great crowds, as always, here at the Minnesota State Fair, and yeah, we're just loving it.
Cheer 'em on, folks. Thank you, Gary.
After all the logs have been chopped, the All-Star Stunt Dogs have some fur-flying fun of their own. These dogs are talented, but it's their story that's worth an extra cheer. Whoa!
All the dogs are actually rescues from pounds and shelters, so I think that makes them very special. The fact that we've taken them from a pound in that situation and turned them into the stars that they are now, and just loving life and just having a ball here at the fair.
For the record, all of these Northwoods shows are free. After I've had my fill of the live shows, I like to take a moment to come to the DNR fish pond to see all the big fish Ron Scherer has missed over the years. Well, maybe not all of them, but the DNR fish pond likely has a few. Did you know Minnesota has over 160 different species of fish? A lot of options if you like to catch the big one. Don't forget your swim trunks. For the adventurous soul, Key Log Rolling offers log rolling lessons and guarantees to have you rolling in minutes. Well, maybe not guarantee, but you can try. If your clothes get wet, don't fret. There's a hip new clothing store that's set up camp, made for Minnesota.
Soda Clothing started as a school project at UMD by my brother Spencer Johnson, and then from there it grew into a local business. It's all like Minnesota-inspired, Minnesota lifestyle, just encompasses who we are and what we like to wear.
Hey! Cool shirt.
There you are.
Awesome. Take a bite of the Northwoods. You won't regret it. From giggles to giggles.
Hey, you guys, how is everything out there?
The Northwoods has you covered. That's if you aren't afraid of having a little outdoor fun.
Instead of getting wild in the kitchen, we're going to get wild at the State Fair. And I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite foods here at the fair. Of course, we're going to start with the crowd favorite, which are cheese curds. Did you know that all the curds are provided by one creamery, and it's Ellsworth Cooperative Creamery? They provide 60 tons of cheese curds to the fair each year. They've been doing this for 30 years, and the vendors pick up their curds every day at the creamery, so you know they're fresh as can be.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Minnesota Select GMC dealers. Kingtail Gator, Connecticut, Jesse Treble's Safe Basements of Minnesota, and by Evinrude, the official outboard motor of Minnesota Bound.
Welcome back to the Minnesota Bound State Fair show. The fair is a pretty big deal. You've heard the phrase, speak softly and carry a big stick. Teddy Roosevelt said it. Guess where? Right here at the State Fair during a speech back in 1901. You know what else is a big deal? The Minnesota Bound cabin. Laura Shera is inside to show you why.
Welcome to the Minnesota Bound log cabin. There are so many goodies inside of here, and I'm going to show you a few of my favorites. And we're going to start off with the clothing. Of course, ladies like the clothing. I am wearing one of my favorite t-shirts here in the Minnesota Bound log cabin. It's the baseball tee with the Minnesota Bound logo on it. So cute. Lots of other t-shirts and goodies here. Another thing that is a must-have in the fishing boat for men and women is the neck gaiter. I use these all the time when I'm fishing to protect my skin from the sun. Very, very important. And this one has Raven on it. Now that we have fashion covered, it's time to move on for things for your home. And there's lots of wonderful items here in the log cabin. This is a really unique item. It's a bottle opener, but it's hand carved, of course, in the shape of Minnesota. Great idea for out in the garage or maybe inside your cabin. Next to me here, we have some dish towels that are hand stitched by, of course, a Minnesotan, and she made these Love from Minnesota hand towels. You can see there's a little heart there right on Minneapolis, almost right over where the State Fair is located. They have towels, and there's also pot holders. Again, a great item for not only for your house, but maybe also for your cabin. We can't forget about your canine friends back home because they're not allowed to come to the State Fair, so make sure you bring a treat back for them. And here we have some really fun items. This is Maggie's Dog Pops. This is a dog treat on a stick. Of course, everything at the State Fair is on a stick, so why not your dog treat as well? Here we have Minnesota dog snacks, and these are made by a mother and daughter duo right here in Minnesota. And no, these are not a jar of pickles. These are actually dog treats as well. Now, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more hearty for your dog, we have the Power Bark Dog Bar. Now, this is a full meal replacement, kind of like a protein bar for humans, but this is for your dog. Great for hunters if you're bringing your dog out in the field. You want to get this one. But last but not least, we all want a Raven puppy in our house, and we have these Raven puppies available. We promised Mom and Dad these guys are fully housebroken. Yes, it's true, the holidays are right around the corner, so why not pick up a few gifts while you're here at the Minnesota Bound Log Cabin? And let's start with the bird lovers in your life. You have to check this out. This is a peanut butter bird feeder. Now, if you put a little bit of peanut butter in here, put it up in your backyard, you may find a few chickadees or a woodpecker or two that will stop by to say hello. Also, what's really fun are these fish ornaments. Now, these are handmade by a high schooler in northern Minnesota. And wouldn't it be unique to have fish on your Christmas tree this year? A couple other items, we have antler keychains, really delicious, good smelling soaps. I always, of course, have to plug the seasonings because I like wild game cooking. This is a new one this year. It's prairie chili seasoning, excellent for bison or elk or venison. And 2017, it's almost here, folks. You can't forget about Ron Scherer's outdoor calendar. This has all sorts of great information on it, wildlife art, when to buy your license for the season, and we have a Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Dakota version. Last but not least, let's face it, we can all get a little loony when we're at the State Fair, right? So why not try the Loon Tune? This is a wonderful toy for adults and kids to see just how loony they can get. So there you have it. That's the tour of the Minnesota Bound Log Cabin. When you're here at the State Fair, stop by and say hello.
Next up, it's Art Minnesota Style. Tag along with the creator as he takes his art from the woodpile to the Minnesota Fair.
Closed captioning is brought to you by The Art, premier manufacturers of maintenance-free outdoor patio furniture and accessories from recycled plastic.
Here at the Minnesota Bound State Fair Cabin, we like to highlight locally made products. Exactly why taking a break in this big old cushy chair kind of makes me want to weave the perfect State Fair story. Minnesota's great get-together.
$4.
Plenty of food.
There you go.
Lots of shows. More people than you could ever count. But if you look closely, in the midst of the hustle and bustle, a story hides at the Minnesota Bound State Fair Cabin. Meet Bill Novak, the brains and brawn behind Minnesota Bound's cabin furniture. Bill shapes white cedar, grown right here in Minnesota. This central Minnesota business is that of a one-man show.
You got to make sure this will fit on there. It's from start to finish, and I like the projects that somebody tells me that, well, this can't be done, because that's the one I'm going to do.
Chandra Gebhardt appreciates Bill's vision.
I think the quality of work is huge, plus it's just beefy, it's handmade, it's well made, and the finish is fantastic for it too.
This is kind of my signature piece here. I build probably 35 to 40 swings a year.
It all starts with raw stock. Bill cuts, sands, rolls, and fits.
And then begin the finishing process.
Finish means a secret stew of stain and sealer that ends up protecting a real piece of Minnesota outdoor art.
Well, the customers I get in, they want things that stand out and that aren't stamped out. One way you can get it is just by handcrafting, coming up with what they want to see for the end result, and then I usually try to do above and beyond.
So, if you visit the Minnesota Bound Cabin, do not be afraid to sit down and swing. Just do Bill a favor and savor his story. And don't forget his work.
Of course, we have to find all the wild game here at the fair, and we're going to sample something that I'm guessing not many of you have had before. This is alligator. This is Bayou Bob's deep-fried alligator, and don't worry, this is not from our Minnesota lakes. This is directly from Florida, and it's delicious.
Still ahead, meet a company that partners with Mother Nature to make a difference.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Borderview Lodge, Ellsworth Creamery, and by Totem Resorts.
If you visit the Minnesota Bound State Fair Cabin, you will notice some very special landscaping this year. Yes, these grasses and flowers look awesome, courtesy of Minnesota Native Landscapes, but they are also the roots of a Minnesota story that is right now probably more important than ever. Prairies aren't just beautiful, they're pretty too. pretty rare. Get this, less than 1% of Minnesota's native prairies remain. Way back when, native plants provided darn near all of Minnesota's habitat for bugs, butterflies, bees, and birds. Exactly why Minnesota Native Landscapes business booms.
We have crews out on about 300 projects a year.
This Otsego-based company rehabilitates and reintroduces native prairies and plants on darn near every scale.
So there's really no project too small. Pollinator gardens are popping up in yards.
The work all starts on a central Minnesota farm where seed fields come alive with color. The team grows giant plots of all kinds of plants native to Minnesota. Come harvest time, they focus on seeds.
We run every day, or 5 days a week anyway.
Vintage seed machines run all year long.
This is basically starting material here. Pretty needle in a haystack to find the seed. That particular machine has 3 different screens. It shakes back and forth, and the good stuff comes out on this end.
That seed will go either into project fields or into Native Landscapes greenhouses.
We start seeding actually before February, so it's more of a year-round production facility than you'd think.
As the tiny plugs grow, workers move them to bigger containers.
So this is a larger plug. There's 36 plants in a tray. This is an order that's getting pulled for a wetland restoration.
Before you know it, the plants are ready to go out the door. This order is headed to a wetland project.
4,800 plants are going to go and get installed on Monday.
Dried seed is the other big part of the business. Habitat teams plant seed even in the shadow of big city life.
We're putting down a mix of prairie grasses and flowers. You know, once it grows up, it will be a lot of tall grasses and flowers that will really enhance the landscape. You know, it's kind of bringing back the landscape to what it was 100 years ago.
Prairies take patience, no doubt. Think 3 to 5 years for new plantings to start to mature. Once they grow,
so you start over there and start doing your fence line.
Work really heats up.
And we'll do the same thing here. Al, now focus on this here.
The company's Habitat team burns projects every spring.
Prairies are dependent on fire.
Before settlement, lightning sparked fires that would race across the prairie.
It invigorates the native grasses, but then also any invasives that have moved into the area will knock them back because they're greening up, they're in their prime growing season.
Burning is getting a lot more popular. People are starting to understand prescribed burning. They're starting to see the benefits that it can provide.
Back out on Minnesota Native Landscapes seed field, the wild bergamot and blazing star fields are about to mature. So next time you see one of these trucks around town,
people are starting to hear more about using natives, and they're starting to learn a little bit more and do a lot more restoration.
understand real progress actually means going back in time, back to Minnesota's native landscape.
And that story right there is the reason this is my favorite food here at the State Fair, because this is Minnesota sorbet. You're having some Minnesota ice cream, but it's using Minnesota honey, so it's locally sourced honey. It's delicious. A little bit of sweet, a little bit of tart.
And I think the point is that last story, having a diverse prairie with wildflowers can help our declining bee and insect populations.
That's right. So make sure you stop by the beehive area and pick up a little bit of sweetness, just like you.
Aww, you're the best. Well, that about does it for today's show. I hope you get a chance to get down to the State Fair. If you do, stop in and see us. And you never know, you might even see a raven.
That's right.
Yum.
Delicious.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. For more information on these stories and more, catch us on the web at mnbound.com.